See, I've got some questions about gold because
Yeah.
I'm thinking of buying some at the moment.
Whoa.
Yeah,
There
I'll
you
tell you
go.
the reason why. We made a show this week with Luke Woman.
He's great, isn't he?
Brilliant.
I have so much respect for him.
He's so good.
Yeah.
But he very casually just dropped in that, yeah, at some point soon, we're probably going to see high double-digit, maybe triple-digit inflation in Europe and the US. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's what happens in Lebanon and Turkey and Argentina. He's like, no, it has to happen.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, well, the way he explained it, he said, well, we can do 10 to 20 for 10 years, or we can do 100 for 3 years and just short and get through it. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
What? And so we did an interview with a guy a while back, and he said, diversify your portfolio. I'm way overcooked on Bitcoin, but I've got cash reserves.
Sure.
The problem is my cash in the bank's melting. So I was thinking, why don't I just hold my cash in gold?
Yes.
Because I don't want to hold it in Bitcoin because Bitcoin's volatile and choke point.
Right.
So I'll hold my cash in gold
Yes.
with a small amount of cash in pounds, and then my savings in Bitcoin.
Yes.
And I was gonna ask you, is that a sensible thing?
I think it's a very sensible thing. I mean, the negatives on gold are well known, right? It's very manipulated. We all know that. And holding your cash in gold, it's not necessarily an easy in or easy out for the physical, which so there are two forms of gold, right? There's physical gold and there's paper gold, and then there's some of the paper gold is actually legitimate. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you can buy gold in an ETF form where I know and believe the ETF is good. Sprott is the one, and they have something called PHYS, and they have something called PSLV. They actually have the underlying metal that they say they have, and I believe that because I know Eric Sprott. I know he's an honest man, and so I would advise you to use that because you can buy it with no spread or no premium. If you say, okay, Larry, I want to buy some gold or some silver coins, and there's a use case for those. The use case for those is the internet's down and you're going to the border and you want to bribe the guards, you've got these coins, right? Or the world goes into, Matt Odell, mandibles kind of world, and, nobody's trading in Bitcoin. Well, everyone knows what a coin is, right? The problem with the coins is the premiums are big. You go to buy a gold coin and you're going to pay 5 to 8% over melt value. You could sell it at usually face at melt value, but if you're thinking of trading in and out of something and your vig is your spread is a 5 to 8% spread, that's going to eat you up pretty quickly.
Right.
So to me, the coins you want to hold for the, it's an apocalyptic world. And the other nice thing about the coins, they're off the radar screen. Nobody can see them. You're not going to get a report. I mean, if you buy Fizz in your brokerage account and it goes up, you're going to get a report, and you sell it, you're going to report you owe taxes. You buy the coins. I mean, I own a lot of coins, and I imagine what will happen one day if I have a taxable estate is I'll go to my 3 kids and say, okay, this is your pile, this is your pile, and this is your pile, and the government won't know that any of that has taken place. So, But yes, so buying gold as a proxy, it's one of the things. It's another interesting thing is that people say, well, there's going to be deflation. There could be, and there could be massive deflation. We've got this enormous debt structure which is in the process of collapsing. What's the best thing to have in deflation? Go back to the 20s. The best thing to have in inflation is cash, or deflation is cash, because the price of everything falls relative to cash, right? So in the 20s, if you had, in the 30s, if you had cash and housing prices went down 90%, you could buy a house for 10 cents on the dollar. What is gold? Gold is cash that can't be printed, right? And that's the beauty of it. It's literally a liquid form of cash that cannot be debased the way all fiat currencies can and will be debased. So the advantage really, I mean, as I compare and contrast gold to Bitcoin, gold has a couple of advantages. One is there's no ongoing energy cost to holding coins. Coins are mined, the energy spent, you got the coins, that's it, no more. Bitcoin, you buy the Bitcoin, if you just hold it and hodl it in an address, you're not paying anything, but there will be an energy cost. Somebody's got to pay for that transaction when you choose to sell it, right? In the sense that there'll be some kind of a SATS fee, so to speak. And more recently, when the blockchain got rather backed up after Silicon Valley Bank blew apart, I saw some transactions going through at $700 a transaction. So that's worth keeping in mind. But in all other respects, I think Bitcoin is so far superior that I recommend everybody have a shitload of Bitcoin, and I recommend older people in particular have some gold because generally speaking, older people don't like to see enormous volatility. I mean, I have clients who are 70 or 80 years old. If I told them, hey, your account's down 80%, but don't worry, it's going to come back, they'd shoot me, right?
Well, yeah, they might not have a whole cycle left in them.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. You've got to have a longer time frame. But to be completely fair, I mean, if I were 30 years old, I'd probably be 90% Bitcoin, 10% gold. I mean, I'll just, for the listeners to have a sense, I'm 65 years old, and I'm about half and half.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm about 90% Bitcoin, 10% cash.
Okay.
And the cash
So
is what I'm thinking of putting into gold.
I personally, and this isn't investment advice,
Yeah.
all the normal disclaimers, wouldn't be crazy in my view for you to take 10% of that, take half that cash and put it in gold.
That's some great investment advice.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is then if I do put that, 5-10% into gold, of that 5-10% in, I might put 10% of that into physical.
Maybe, yeah.
Hide that away.
Right. Have some coins.
Ready for the apocalypse.
Ready for the apocalypse. Bribe the guards.
Yeah.
You can always trade it. Everyone knows what a coin is, and stick to the well-known coins, right? I mean, don't mess around with the blocks. I mean, they're tungsten-coated gold blocks. There's been a lot of that recently, so you got to.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to buy kilobars. No. You want to buy sovereigns. You want to buy American Eagles, American Buffaloes, Canadian Maple Leafs. They're all good choices in my view. But as I say, you're going to.
What about the Bank of England one? Are they trusted?
Yeah, that's a sovereign.
Okay.
Yeah, the British sovereign. Yeah, you're going to pay a 5 to 8% over melt value. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, gold is gold. It's a commodity, right? And it's worth what you could melt it down for. But the fact that somebody's turned it into a coin that's easily recognizable, and it's hard to fake those coins. The Chinese have tried to make fake gold coins, silver eagles and gold eagles. They're terrible. I mean, if you actually have seen one, held one, played with one, I mean, it's really hard to make it, and so you don't have to worry about counterfeits. Is the point I'm trying to make. Right,
and there is still a case for silver.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a bigger case for silver if you can handle the volatility. I mean, the beautiful thing about silver versus gold is it's got a commodity use value, right? I mean, gold is just, and all the gold that's ever been mined is still above ground, and it's either in a vault or around a lady's neck, or in a museum. Silver gets used every year. We don't have a big stockpile of silver. Silver is kind of, seed to table. I mean, it gets mined and it gets used. And, there are silver tea sets that get melted down. That's about 18% of the supply every year. But the point is that silver has a growing use case in two major areas, solar and electronics. And so as a result of that, if there ever gets to be a tightness in the silver market, the silver is going to go up much more quickly than gold.
Huh.
I personally think silver is going to $50 or $100 an ounce, and right now it's at 26. So,
I was once told all the gold in the world would fit under the Eiffel Tower.
That's true.
I didn't know that.
That's true. It's a couple of Olympic-sized swimming pools is what I've been told.
It doesn't seem right, does it?
No, there's not much of it. It's a very rare substance, right? And it's indestructible, and that's why until Bitcoin came along, it was the best form of money we had, and 5,000 years of human history, everybody has adopted that and recognizes that, and that's not going away anytime soon. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't even know what Bitcoin is, sadly, but but they know what a gold coin is, generally speaking, almost any place in the world.
Talk to me about the conference you've just been to, and tell me and Danny what you just told me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was at the European Gold Forum. This is run by the Denver Gold Group, probably the biggest gold organization in the world. They have 2 conferences a year. They have one in Denver. They have one in Zurich, and this is the first conference they've had post-COVID. They shut it down for all the COVID stuff. And typically this conference runs between 600 and 800 people per year, attendees. In this particular year, they told me they had 240 people sign up and probably only 180 showed up.
Wow.
And 90 of those were from the industry itself. So that means just gold companies who go there trying to get people interested in their company. So they had 90 attendees. I mean, this is, right? Now, one might say, okay, well, that's really bad. Nobody's interested in gold. As a contrarian and as an investor, my view is that's incredibly good. Here we are, gold is almost at an all-time high. Gold's at 2040 right now. Last all-time, it's peaked at 2063 and 2070-ish, right after the war broke out. And when we go through those two numbers with authority, it'll be an all-time high. And as most of us who operate in financial markets know, when something goes through an all-time high, it sets off a lot of algorithms. Like, holy shit, this is a breakout. And so in my opinion, when we go through 2100 with authority, probably we'll go to 22 or 3, we'll correct back to 2000, maybe a little below it. Everyone say, oh, it was a fake breakout, but then we'll start going up again, very much the way, when Bitcoin kind of came out of the 16, went up, and eventually it hit 30, but it came back to 20, but now it's back up, and going again. It'll become obvious that, it's kind of game on in the sound money land. And that's what I'm here to kind of tell your listeners and tell you, we talked about it in the car. I mean, I'm just incredibly bullish right now. What's happening? I mean, it's sad, of course, in a lot of ways, than what's going on in the world. But in terms of the sound money theme and the assets that Bitcoiners and gold owners hold, I couldn't be more bulled up. I mean, I think we are going to see an outstanding next 2 years. I really do.
Wow.
What do those people at the gold conference think of Bitcoin?
That's a great question. So it runs from complete antagonism, and I got into it on the web with one of those guys about that. You guys probably saw it.
Did you block him?
I did, but then I met him at the conference, and we actually had a nice conversation. And we kind of had misunderstood each other, and I decided, forgive and forget. And I'm a Christian and all that, and I kind of felt bad that I had blocked him. He was so obnoxious, and he really he disrespected somebody who I have enormous respect for, Bitcoin Ollie.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's just such a sweetheart. And I thought, God damn it, Peter, I'm done with you. And so I blocked him, and we got into it. Anyway, we kissed and made up. It's all good. He doesn't like Bitcoin. Fine. To answer your question, though, Danny, at several of these conferences, and I go to the New Orleans Gold Show every year. I generally give a speech there, and I always quiz the audience, and I say, okay, you guys, and I talk a lot about gold, obviously, but we talk about Bitcoin too. And I say, look, guys, and I view my role in this whole event, this revolution. I'm the guy who's trying to lead the Goldbugs into Bitcoin. I mean, I think Bitcoin is a superior choice. And rather than get mad at the Goldbugs or call them the enemy or do some of the things that other people in the industry have done, my view is no, they're your easiest convert. They get the thesis. They just don't understand. They're afraid of Bitcoin. A lot of times it's because of the FTXs and the Bankman-Frieds, and they think it's all fraudulent shit, right? But anyway, to answer your question, I go to the New Orleans Gold Conference, and I said, how many of you guys own Bitcoin? Half the hands go up, half. And I would have said that I had the same experience in Switzerland.
Right.
A couple of the older guys, a guy I really respect, Egon von Greyerz, who I think totally understands the monetary situation. He's against Bitcoin, but we're friends. It's all good. But I'd say in general, and it tends to correlate fairly much with age. I mean, the younger people tend to get it better.
I wonder if there is a correlation also with your position within the gold world, in that if you're like a very well-known, highly respected gold bug, is there reputational risk of starting to diversify to what is it's complementary, but also competitive?
I get it. There can only be one,
Yeah.
and it is complementary, and they are competitive, and it's gold's number one, and so Bitcoin wants to overthrow number one. I get all of that. So to me, that's people who are looking at investing as a religion, and to a degree it is. I mean, look, Bitcoin's a lot more than number go up and making money. To me, it actually is a religion, but I think as you look at it as an investor, as a probability-weighted investor, you have to entertain both. And you have to admit that Bitcoin has crushed gold, and you have to see that gold is, the Bitcoin is becoming digital gold. It's not fully there yet, and it's going to take time. But yes, you're right. I mean, I was talking to somebody last night. Does Peter Schiff really believe his bullshit? I don't know that he does. I mean, I think his whole shtick might be just a marketing shtick, to get clicks and everything else. I mean, hell, his son is a Bitcoiner, right? I mean, he's got to be smarter than that. But perhaps not. I mean, I think I don't think he's doing it because of his position, and he can't disrespect gold. I think he actually sincerely hasn't taken the time to deeply understand how it works. And I think if you haven't done the work and you haven't taken the time, I mean, and you look around. I mean, remember, there's been a lot of crypto bullshit. I mean, a lot of crypto bullshit. We all know that. And, if you don't do the work and you just look at that and you go, oh, fuck this shit, I'm not going to, why should I be messing around with this fraudulent crap?
Well, most of us are dismissive first time. I dismissed it first time.
I did too.
You did. We all do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's 2, 3, 4. It takes those multiple touch points.
And even after I hadn't dismissed it, I started in 2013, I kept thinking to myself, this thing's going to blow up. I mean, it's a computer. How can a computer possibly deliver immutable sound money?
Yeah.
But then you meet Odell and you hear people explain it, and you get to the hashing, and you realize, and you get 14 years. You go through the block wars. You have all the forks, and all the other ones die off, and eventually the signal just kind of comes through, like, holy shit, this really is immutable digital security. It's going scarcity. It's going to live forever, and there are 21 million of these suckers, and there's 8 billion people. These things are going to $10 million a coin. I mean,
fingers crossed.
Not fingers crossed. It's just happening. It's math, man.
Well, yeah.
Now the problem is, what will $10 million buy you? I mean, it might be $1,000 gasoline at that point, right? So, but no, it's going to happen. I just don't have any doubt about it.
Yeah, I think it takes a few touch points. I also think, look, a lot of people don't get gold. I mean,
Well, that's right.
I'd never bought gold before Bitcoin, so I'd gone
Well,
my whole life all the way up until 2013 before I'd bought digital gold.
right.
You
Well,
know,
well, most people just don't get the monetary system,
exactly.
and particularly Americans, because America has, generally speaking, had a stable monetary system. I mean, one of the things I find fascinating, I interact with these people a lot. I have some of them as investors. I met with a couple yesterday. I met with a guy from Lebanon yesterday who's an investor in my fund, and Lebanon's experiencing 70 or 80%, inflation, annualized inflation. Turkey, same story. I mean, he'd been in Turkey. Argentina, same story. I mean, there are lots of places in the world that have had really high inflation. They get it. They save in, I mean, they save in, ironically, they save in the dollar, but
Yeah.
the dollar's more stable than their local currency, or they save in gold, or they save in Bitcoin, because they understand how badly a currency can be abused. The Americans, I mean, the last time we had hyperinflation was, 1789, right, with the Continental. I mean, to a degree, we had it in the Civil War, but America's never really experienced hyperinflation. I find it interesting, too, in speaking to the Germans at the Zurich Gold Show, all Americans are just terrified of the next Great Depression, because I know in my case, I heard from my grandparents about how bad it was, how they were eating biscuits and, they had no money and things were horrific. And that's the great American fear is deflation. You're in Germany, you're in Zurich, and you're meeting with Germans who are gold investors.
The opposite.
The exact opposite. All their grandparents experienced hyperinflation, and they're just terrified of inflation because of what it did to their country, and then drove them into being led by a madman and all the other stuff. So, it's very interesting the way these fears get passed down through generations. And, frankly, we've enjoyed this really sweet period post-World War II where monetary conditions were relatively stable and the U.S. behaved somewhat acceptably back in those days, right after World War II. I mean, it never has behaved totally acceptably. In fact, it was interesting. I was talking with Egon, and he said, well, human beings are involved. Everything will always go to shit eventually. And that's kind of cynical. I said, he said, yeah, there are no good human beings. I said, well, Egon, the guys who were the founding fathers of this country, they were really great human beings. I mean, the documents they wrote were just brilliant. They moved the world and society forward, blah, blah, blah. And he says, yes, Larry, but remember, they also committed genocide. They wiped out the entire American native population. And it's like, you got a point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody free of
And they had slaves.
Yeah, and they had slaves. And right. I mean, the history of human, progress is full of good guys and bad guys and some people who are mixed. And, we keep going in the right direction, I hope. But, there are bad guys out there, right?